was a long and good introduction. So today I want to talk a little bit about the journey of a molecule. And I'm going to use a little bit of creative licensing to tell our story here. But we're going to talk about how natural gas is turned into everyday products that you see sitting at your table, you have at home, you go to the grocery store, things that play a pivotal role in our environment every single day. But before I do, I want to start with a little bit of a story. And this started about 10 years whenever I first started in Washington, D.C. as an advocate for environmental health, safety, and security. And my responsibility was putting safety and process safety practitioners in the same room. And these were meetings that were very collaborative, very intimate, 15 to 20 safety professionals. And they had the opportunity to talk about their challenges, talk about solutions, and kind of work things out to drive improvement on the national level. And this was one of my first meetings, and I remember going down to Dallas, Texas, and climbing that big skyscraper, looking out over downtown Dallas and thinking, man, this is the heart of oil and gas. You know, this is a big refining company, Holly Frontier Corporation, and I've got these process safety engineers and managers in the room. This is so exciting. And usually we started those meetings out with a simple question. That day, it just so happened to be what got you into safety. And the first gentleman that stood up was in his mid-50s. And I can't remember if we made him go first, which is not uncommon, or if he just happened to be the lucky guy that was first in line. But he stood up in front of a room full of strangers, of his peers, again, very intimate and very closed in this boardroom. And as he recounted this story of 20 years prior, when he was an operator, and there was a release of material, and there was a tragic incident where one of his best friends perished in that incident. And there were tears coming down his eyes in front of a room full of strangers. And in that moment, I knew that these people have something truly special. Now, as an advocate for the industry, especially in Washington, D.C., I get asked a lot of wild questions, as you can imagine. And one of them is, do these safety professionals actually care about their workforce and keeping the workforce safe? Or are they just trying to take home the bacon to, take care of their families, to take care of their grandchildren? And every time that comes up, I'm recounted of that story, because these safety practitioners and these process safety engineers, they work tirelessly. They do their 16, 17-hour shifts during turnaround, and then they go home and pray that their phone doesn't call, because they are always on call. And the expectation is 0 incidents. The expectation is that every single employee that walks through that fence line gets to walk out of that fence line the same way, maybe a little bit more tired. So that's what we're going to talk about today with our story of the molecule. And here's why it matters for procurement. So as the director of data analytics, I get to look at data all around the nation, even all around the globe. We're part of a big consortium for chemical associations. And I get to see improvements, I get to see a lot of noise, I get to see areas of opportunity and growth, and I imagine it's not too dissimilar from what you get to look at. Especially as procurement professionals, you get to look at lead times, delivery times, are we hitting our mark? But here's what I want to challenge you today to do. Every decision that you make, every vendor that you qualify, they could impact safety and reliability. Okay, so you've seen this logo, hopefully. But let's talk about it a little bit. Responsible care is the industry's commitment to improving environmental health, safety, and security. It's been around for about 40 years, and over those 40 years, we've brought it into 70 different countries on this globe to drive improvement. Here in the United States, it is an obligation of membership. If you want to sit at the table with the American Chemistry Council, you have to practice responsible care. And at its foundation, it means about 5 things. It has grown into so much more than that: corporate responsibility, workforce development, taking care of our communities and our neighbors. But at the foundation, the key aspects are implementing our technical specifications and our codes of management into your management system. It means being audited on your ability to do that. It means transparently reporting your metrics, your safety, your process safety, your environmental metrics like greenhouse gas emissions, and then allowing the ACC to publish this data to the world for benchmarking, for transparency, to demonstrate our commitment to EHS. And then last but not least, your CEO's got to be cool with all of this. So they play a pretty big role in the leadership of disseminating our EHS values across the entire organization. Now, like I said, we've been doing this for about 40 years. And we've been growing and improving, and the program has looked different. Every 5 years, we do a strategic review to maintain that growth. And somewhere along the way, our board of directors acknowledged publicly that, hey, our responsibility for proper chemicals management doesn't just end at the fence line. We have a responsibility to maintain control of our chemicals across the entire supply chain. And in this realization about 25 years ago, we extended the responsible care program to the supply chain through our partner program. So these are sectors like rail truck carriers, marine operators, service contractors, terminal operators, warehouses. We've got several different sectors and over 100 companies that participate in this program, and they are obligated to do the exact same management system framework that our manufacturing companies are obligated to do. So as I move over to the story, I want to share with you the size and scope of what we're talking about, because as I'll talk about the supply chain, I want to talk about the numbers first. So we're talking about an $833 billion industry. I'm getting my numbers mixed up because there's so many. We're talking about almost a quarter of U.S. GDP. We're talking about millions of jobs, and the average pay for many of those jobs is exceptional. Annually for the nation, it's $100,000 on average. Here in Texas, it's even more. I was talking to TCC a couple of weeks ago, and their numbers for Texas are $130,000 at an average pay. That's exceptional. When we talk about numbers for trade, we're talking about $164 billion exported, and 26% of chemical shipments are exported globally. We have a major impact on supply and demand and the global trade. Okay, so now we want to start with our journey. We're going to talk a little bit about natural gas, ethane, ethylene, and then the plastic that goes into everyday products. I'm going to use a little bit of creative licensing with my pictures and with my storyline, and we're going to talk about how this ties back to procurement. We're going to talk a little bit about the safety of it all. But to get things kicked off, we're starting at the wellhead. And so we do exploration, we do drilling, we do production. We'll pull this natural gas out of the wellhead. And if market conditions allow, we might take that natural gas and we might ship it via pipeline to our first point of contact with a responsible care partner. Now, before we get to that partner, I want to show a little bit about some of these other chemistries. A lot comes from crude oil, a lot comes from natural gas. More than 90% of all organic chemistry is derived from the 7 petrochemicals that you see here. And our friendly molecule, ethylene, is up over there in the olefins family. So that's who we're going to focus on mostly. But this is a simplified graph to demonstrate the complexities of everyday modern life and how it's affected by these petrochemicals. Now, again, another simplified product tree that we have. And this shows the journey that ethylene takes into coming into everyday products. It's put into diapers, antifreeze, the plastics that you find in automotive parts. There's so many different products that come from this one chemistry that it can be a little overwhelming to show on a simple product tree. So this is very simplified. Okay, so we were at the wellhead, we went to the pipeline, now we're at the terminal. This is the first point of contact for a responsible care partner. And for responsible care partners, these are companies like Kinder Morgan, Third Coast, Canal Terminals Company, Odgefeld, and a handful of others. And this is a critical handoff point. Now, at these terminals, as you know, they might have several different responsibilities. They could be light separation, separating natural gas into maybe ethane, or maybe it's storage or some light blending. But the point is, this is an important part for our molecule to continue its journey. And this is where our first part of safety comes into play for our responsible care partners. Now, what you're looking at is a graph of the process safety events for our responsible care partners, both the terminal operators and the warehouse sector. And there are so few numbers that I had to lump the two together, even though we're talking about the terminal operators right now. Our partners work day in and day out to maintain safety. And every single person in this room is aware of a major incident that has happened with our terminal operators. These things are real life, and we work to make sure that that does not happen moving forward. Okay. So wellhead, pipeline, terminal, now we're piping that natural gas, especially ethane, into the heart of the chemical manufacturing process, the olefins plant. So we'll take our raw material, natural gas and ethane, and we're sending it to the cracking unit. And this is where it's going to go. It's going to go through steam cracking and be converted into ethylene. Okay, so companies, responsible care practitioners like LyondellBasell, CP Chem, INEOS, Shell Chemical, these are all companies that play a crucial role in these types of manufacturing processes. And during this, for our molecule, for this process, this is where the real hazards emerge. So if you remember your high school chemistry, ethylene is double bonded, so it's highly reactive. So we're talking about adiabatic compression, we're talking about self-polymerization, carbon steel embrittlement, runaway reactions. This is pivotal for the highest levels of process safety discipline. And from here, things can be very unforgiving if they're not managed properly. So ethylene is then polymerized on site and at very, very high pressures. And this is a remarkable point of our molecule where we go from a flammable gas into the plastic resins that go into everyday products that you're familiar with. And this is where some of the biggest hazards that we deal with need to be managed. So let's look at our process safety event data for the entire industry, the entire industry of responsible care practitioners. And this year, we are extremely excited to announce a major milestone in process safety events. This is the lowest number that we've had in the history of ACC collecting this data. We've had a 22% decrease in process safety events since 2017, and we're at 182 events. Now, no, it's not zero, and yes, we do still have major disruptions, but the key thing here is that of those 182 incidents, over 90% of them are considered low severity, meaning they don't have major consequences. It could have been a release of material that was easily mitigated. I shouldn't use the word easily, but it was mitigated. And we are continuously working to help improve that. Now, here's where it matters for procurement. A major incident means a big disruption. It means the lack of reliability within our supply chain. And better process safety means fewer disruptions. It means a more stable delivery of products. It means the expectation that we all have. So purchasing decisions or contracts with vendors, all of that is a decision that affects safety and reliability. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our journey. We have our plastic pellets, and this is where it could be transferred via rail, companies like CXX that practice responsible care, or our trucking partners, like our bulk truck carriers, Dupree Logistics, Dana Transport, Keenan Advantage. These are just a handful of the companies that all practice responsible care. And yes, while a single trucking incident on the highway carrying plastic resins isn't necessarily going to be considered catastrophic, it can still lead to delays and roadway interruptions. But more importantly, it leads to public perception concerns. And that affects everything across our industry. So choosing the right logistics partner means something, one that has a positive safety record, one that has a positive DOT 5800 record. So let's look at what our DOT 5800 data is. Again, this year, we have just announced, actually yesterday, our president and CEO sent out a press release of our fantastic performance, and we have yet another record-breaking year, the lowest DOT 5800 incidents that we've ever had since the Department of Transportation has started collecting this data. Now that red line right there shows the shipment rate, and it's relatively plateaued. We only have 4 years of data, so we can't necessarily call that a trend. But what we can call a trend is our downward count of events for DOT 5800s. And this is something we're very proud of, a 35% decrease in incidents. Okay, so our molecule is getting close to the end of its journey. It may have been trucked or railed to a finishing plant, to a plastic injection molding facility, where it's going to be transformed into the everyday products that you guys see on the grocery store. And so as we come full circle, I want to come back to our message of every decision matters. So whether you're evaluating a pressure relief valve and trying to determine with your process safety engineer if it's truly in kind, or if you're finalizing a logistics contract to determine what trucks are going to pass through your fence line, just remember that every decision matters. And yes, those decisions are safety related. So you may not wear that hard hat, or some of you may not be on that manufacturing floor, but every employee makes decisions. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in the front office or if you're on that shop floor. And this is where responsible care teaches us that safety isn't just for the EHS team. It's built into the culture, and it is a leadership value. It's an operational standard. It's a maintenance practice. And yes, it's a big part of procurement. as well. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you all very much.